Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm hoping to open and kind of blow your minds on some things that you probably don't associate or think about when you think about cars. And it's just things I've learned over the years of owning them and using them partially as financial tools, but also as motivators to get me to the next level. So stay tuned. We're gonna talk about all this today. All right guys, hey, so just to start, let's rewind this sucker back. When I was a kid, started from really humble beginnings. There were times where we didn't have any money and then times where we'd have a little bit, and it was just this ebb and flow, but we were always kind of in like this perpetual struggle growing up. And then as I progressed and got older, it continued, and I won't go into details, you see that in other videos, but to a point where when I got out of school, I was drowning in debt. I had served some time in the Army. I'd been an airline pilot. Again, drowning in debt, had to quit because I couldn't afford to make my student loan payment based on my airline pilot salary. It was crazy. So I ran into people over the years that I looked up to and who spoke into my life about how to become financially free, so to speak. And I implemented those things into my life, and it's got me to where I am today. And we're gonna talk about this today. And we're gonna talk about cars and what they mean to me and how I've used them to one-up myself over time. So I've got a note thing behind Miller. So if I'm looking to the right, that's what I'm looking at. Growing up, my dad had sudden death heart disease. So he was really ill pretty much my entire life since I was a young boy. But when at the moments he was healthy, he was really into cars. So that was something that he and I really connected on. And we used to go to car shows. In fact, one of the oldest ones was the Pomona Swap Meet in Southern California. And some of you watching may have heard of that. But it was basically like all classic cars, and people would like lay out parts on the ground way before internet and eBay. And you'd go there like once a month, and you know, you were fixing up your Volkswagen Beetle and you could find parts there. Someone actually had parts randomly. So, or you could actually buy cars. And that was actually where, fast forward to the high school years, that's where I actually bought my first car. I worked at a small hometown pizza place, and I was making, I think, minimum wage back then was like $5 an hour or something. And I just saved and saved and saved, and finally bought this 1972 Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. And my dad and I fixed it up, and it was cool. Most people were getting like nicer cars from their family and stuff in school, and I had this like super orange 72 Karmann Ghia. And right then, that was like me as a child just falling in love all over again with cars, and then eventually doing this. Smart or dumb, I'm still not sure yet, but you know what? I'll tell you the smart parts today. So let's fast forward 20 years in commercial real estate finance. Had my own company for about 10, just got out of that company last year. Now I'm a commercial real estate developer. I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And it wasn't always a rosy road. Halfway through my real estate finance career, 2008, 9, and 10 hit, and pretty much took the rug out from everybody, everywhere, including myself. And I think when I just made partner the first year, I'd make like 18 grand. So like, listen, and I was still in debt. So this wasn't even like a sparkle in my eye. But cars were still always something that I wanted to chase after. I used them over the years as goals in my business. At the end of every year, I set goals, and I'll do another video on this. My first goal car was a E92 M3. And at the time, I think they were like $80,000. And I'm drowning in debt. I have no idea how I'm gonna afford this car. I had some guys I was working for in my commercial real estate finance business that would speak into my life. And after the crash, after a few years after the crash, I was able to save up a little bit of money and bought my first rental property. And I paid cash for it. It was like $45,000, a little condo in Las Vegas. And it was cash flowing at $850 a month. And so what I did was I said, okay, if I can buy an asset that will make the payment on a car, then that will be an allowance for myself to buy that car next year. So I did anything I could to make as much money as I could to chase that asset, and then that asset was actually paying for my M3. And then the next year I actually got rid of the M3, and then I bought an Audi R8, and it was, I think my Audi R8, I think I also paid like 80 grand for or something, right? And so it was just this cycle, and then eventually, as you can see, I've kind of run out of car goals. I've got my dream car back there, my '05 Ford GT. So my goals are changing, but these were the motivating factor to make me go out and do something bigger and better and put myself out there, take risks, do things that I never thought I would do. You might have something else in your life that does that for you, right? And by all means, you should set that as a goal and go for it. And whatever gets you going. But these are my motivation. So cars invoke a feeling in me. They're not just a car, right? Like when I get in this car, it's not like getting in my daily driver. Like I get overtaken by emotion. Like this is awesome, right? And just feeling the shifter in the hand, hearing it start up, everything about it just evokes this emotion and just inspires me to continue to want to do more of my business so I can go do more of this or free up time so I can go drive them, right? So these are such an inspiration. I mean, I could go on forever about how inspiring these really are to me and how they've changed my life, right? Is there anything else, Miller, around that topic that I haven't beat dead yet?
No, I mean, you as a car person, you feeling alone just makes everything worth it. It makes all the time, all the struggle, everything worth it. Once you get in this car, it's gone. Like you just feel it.
Okay, that was the other, I'm so glad you said that. These are my peaceful place. Right? When you build a business and through the years you're growing your business, you are getting bombarded from every direction, whether it's clients or people or family, whatever, right? And you in your head will never have peace. So one thing that I love about this is when I go to my office, I sit in here, sometimes I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I have 15 to 20 minutes of just me in the car. And that is something that is priceless, right? It's that moment that you finally get to decompress, and then you're that much better for your business, your team, your clients, because you got that break. Totally hit right to your point, right? So that is the emotional side of this, and that's the emotional motivation, inspirational side. Here's a problem I have with some of these big financial advice people, right? The Dave Ramsey's of the world and stuff. Great advice, don't get me wrong. Incredible for so many people, but if you're an entrepreneur with a mindset like me, you're always trying to do more. What's a great way to attract people to do business with you or to get close to people that have high net worths where you can bounce ideas off of and stuff? What do you think that is? Listen, guys driving an 05 Ford GT or GT40 or Pro Touring car like this, listen, they've done something in their life to be successful, right? So all of a sudden, this opens up the opportunity to rub elbows with these people. It gets you like, and it sounds so shallow. It's not. It's not meant to be. But like, if I rolled up in this, I'm not going to get the opportunity to go to dinner with the Lamborghini guys, right? How did I do that? I bought a Lamborghini. The relationships I've created, and even though I don't solicit business to this group, and I really never will because that's not the intent behind this group, but through just the friendships we've created, right? Being there for each other. These are like lifelong friends that I now have that I can call at a moment's notice and they'll be like, hey man, what's up? Everything okay? You good? And it could be a business issue, a family issue, anything. And those guys are there, and the other side is they understand what you're going through, especially on the business side. When you're building something bigger, what I've learned over the years, because again, I came from couch surfing, right? And being employed in the Army, being employed as an airline pilot, being employed for someone else while I learned and worked my way up, there's a very different level of understanding that comes with when you work for someone and you're talking to your friends and family, or when you've built a business and everything is on your shoulders, and then you're seeking someone to talk to and get some guidance from, right? You can't just go to anyone for some of the issues that you face. So these cars have opened up that opportunity for me, and it has been life-changing, okay? And there's so much value in that that's not money related on the surface, right? I guess you could buy a mentorship, or you could buy, but these are like true deep relationships that go so far beyond that. It's incredible. Another part to that, which really isn't related to that crew, would be, and I'll tell you a story about this. The amount of business I've done by rolling up in this car or this car to a gas station, and someone comes up and just wants to talk to you, right? And they're like, oh man, I've been dreaming of this, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, the guy owns the dealership down the street, or the guy is a real estate broker and he's got a deal, or you just never know who anybody is, right? Everyone can be so unassuming. So these open up conversations. And we've done so many business deals, my business partner and I, seriously meeting people again. Everyone says deals are made on the golf course. I say nonsense. I'm the worst golfer in the world and I don't enjoy it, but I have made more deals happen through cars, not through buying or selling cars, like literally just from driving or owning my cars, than anything I've ever done in my life. And I'll give you an example. Early on, when I was building my real estate loan business, we were chasing a customer. We couldn't get his deal for like 4 months. We're chasing him. He was on the fence, off the fence, on the fence, off the fence of going with us or someone else, right? So I had just gotten my R8 like a few months prior, and I knew I kind of knew he liked cars. So I said, hey, it was my business partner at the time. I go, hey Pete, I got an idea. So I bring my R8 and I put it in the parking garage, and we invite him to the office, and we're trying to get the deal, right? So as we're leaving, he's still on the fence. So Pete, this was like the good cop, bad cop, he's like, hey, Vinny, why don't you show him your new toy? And Steve was kind of like, what do you mean new toy? And so I go downstairs to the park garage, they wait upstairs, and here I come. And at the time, an Audi R8 was a big deal, right? This was still like 2013. So here's my white with silver stripe R8 rolls up, and he turns into a little boy. I just love how cars do that to you. Turns into a little boy. And I reach over and I open my door and I go, get in. And he's like, no way, this is awesome. So he gets in, we go flying down the street, we come back, and actually on the way back, that's when I closed on him, right? We're coming back down the street, and I looked over and I go, hey, you know that deal we've been talking about this whole time? I go, how about this? Since you love this car so much, if Friday of next week, if I take you from here, we'll go to Malibu and I'll take you to lunch. How about if we do that, you give me the deal? And he goes, I'll do one better. You do that for me, I'll even buy lunch. Next day, he signed the papers and we had the loan in the door. And I think that deal net us 10 grand, right? So cars, there's so much more value in cars, especially when you're an entrepreneur, than anyone can even understand. And the reason I'm bringing this up and trying to get this across to you is because show this to your wife or your friends or your whoever that's questioning why you do this. There are so many opportunities that people that aren't into cars or not building a business just don't know, right? They just don't know what they don't know. My first purple Lambo, I had a purple Lamborghini Performante. It was not a deal my wife was proud of, because I lost probably about $40,000 on that car, right? But that car made us millions in my business. Okay? So I had to sit down and explain to her, listen, I know it's 40 grand, but do you realize opportunities that came from that car, and we built this, and now, it's so that's the bigger thinking that I'm trying to get across to you. Did I kind of hit all that, Miller? Do you have any questions that you think the viewers might have based around that topic?
I think you're spot on. I think most deals can come from the streets. So many deals.
So much.
Like this happened because of cars.
That's exactly right.
Because of a GT40.
Another GT40, yeah.
The GT40.
It's on that wall back there. Yeah, but the reason I bring all this up too is I saw Grant Cardone post something a little while back about like, don't buy a fancy car, don't buy a house, but car is a really bad Lambo, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I put in the comments, I'm like, while I agree with the money part and that money would be better invested somewhere else, I can't tell you how many people and relationships I've curated and business I've done through having that car. I hate to say Grant Cardone, but I think you're wrong on this one. Anyway, okay, let's talk about this concept I have called rolling bank accounts. And is it smart or is it dumb? I don't know, okay? Like I said, these cars inspire, motivate me to do more in my business. Now, I own all my cars outright, and some people say that's a bad move. I like sleeping at night. It brings me peace. I'm fine with it. Listen, this is not financial advice. There's better places to put your money than in cars. Much better. How do you think I got this? I didn't get this by selling cars, okay? I'm a commercial real estate developer. So whether or not, some of our situations might be a little different. If I lose money on a car, it's not gonna hurt that bad, okay? But I have been buying the right cars, and the cars I've been buying have been appreciating, okay? For example, this is a Superformance GT40. This is a licensed continuation car built in a factory in South Africa, and they've only made since like the late 90s, like 450 of these, right? Try to get an allocation. Try to get one. When I bought this, it was sub $200,000 out the door, and I get offers in the mid threes already for this car, probably because it also has an online presence, and what I've done with this is pretty cool. But if you wanted to order one of these today, they only build 2 a month. I think you're 2 years out right now on an allocation. And that's not even like drivable. That's like to get your car built, get it in the States in line to be built. And you can't even get transmission for them. So this is a great investment, whether you like it or not, right? It's a great investment. It's done very well for me. Do I plan on selling it? No. But if I do, I know there's money in it. So when I say rolling bank account, I could have taken that same $190,000 and put it in a bank account. Right now, I think at Morgan Stanley, I've got some money over there making 4.5% just sitting there, right? That's a pretty good return. This has far exceeded that, even with insurance cost, registration, yada, 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 right? Now, I will back up. This is actually titled and registered as a 1965. So for the life of the car, my registration and taxes was $500. So there is not a high cost to own this car except for the insurance. But again, the gain in value is offsetting my insurance cost. Another thing about these cars, all my cars are tied to an LLC. So there's also a lot of tax benefit behind every car that I have in here. I'm not an accountant. I'm not gonna get into the tax benefits, because if I tell you that, I'm totally out of my place and out of my league. So we're not gonna go there. But I can just tell you that, you know, when I drive it to an event, the gas costs, the insurance, blah, 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 right? All that comes into play. So rolling bank account. There is a hell of a lot of equity in this car, right? It's almost like real estate. Now, when I buy a real estate deal and I want to refinance that real estate deal, it is a pain in the ass. It takes 2 months, right, with a bank or broker, and a nightmare of paperwork to get that thing rolling. And then I can pull some equity out. Now, the good thing about that thing is that someone else is paying off my mortgage, right? Granted, this thing's paid for itself almost twofold at this point. If I want to get some money quick, right? If I need money, if I'm like, hey, Mark, we're going to buy a deal, you know, we're going to buy a piece of land for our next development. In 24 hours, I can have 100 grand in my pocket tied to this car. In less than a week, I can probably have 200 grand in my bank account tied to this car, right? I can utilize that money to get my deal rolling, can debt service that, and then that deal is going to make me exponentially more, and when that money comes back, boom, paid off, right? So now this is like a line of credit. Pretty interesting, right? Yeah. The other side is, now if I really need money and I don't want to borrow money, or the banks are going through turmoil or whatever it is, I can likely, if I price this car right, sell it in a week or less. Worst case, I could probably sell it in a month or less, right? That's pretty quick to get a significant amount of money back from an investment, right? Now, do I suggest you do this with every car? No. I don't think you should go buy a Toyota Tacoma brand new off the lot and try it all cash and then apply this principle. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to pick the right cars. And I know there was some comments and some people arguing in the comments about, well, you try to go buy a classic car and fix it up and you'll never get your money back out. Well, the key is to buy the right cars and put the right money into them to get your money back out. This car is probably one of the only ones in my collection that I may not make money on. And we're gonna talk about this in the next video. Why these second gens haven't taken off more than they have value-wise, I don't know, but I probably have more money in this car than I could get back out. But that's okay. Again, I don't mind losing a little bit of money. I wanted one of these. I built this, and I always said, once I build this and this is done, I'm gonna do a second gen. And that's what I did. And this isn't as extreme of a build. So yes, are you bound to lose money on these cars? Yes, absolutely. But in 5 years, when the country's still pushing to electric, right? And it's getting harder and harder to do this, and I have a 620 horsepower, fully built Pro Touring car in a manual, in a V8 that sounds like this. You can't tell me there's not one buyer that's gonna fall in love with this car and pay top dollar, right? They may not do it for that 71, but for this car, I'm gonna get my money back out plus some, right? That's just how this goes. Again, Superformance, right? Superformance car. I paid the right money for this. This is a one-of-one build. It's a Mark III-R, which I think there's only like 20 in the country. There are buyers for this. There's a backlog of people that want these. I could put it out there right now and get big dollar for it, right? So it's all about which cars you buy. And you make your money on the buy, just like with real estate. You buy it right, and that's where you make your money, not when you sell it, right? And granted, one more thing, because I just keep going on this tangent on this asset. This is an asset, okay? Now, I'm not gonna get all conspiratorial on you guys, but listen, if the value of the dollar goes away, if whatever's going on in the world affects the dollar, where your dollar in the bank, or your money in the bank is now worth nothing, you have an asset. This is an asset. A house I consider a liability, but it's still an asset. A rental property is an asset. It's good to have your money in assets. So, whereas if you have large amounts of cash in banks, they only insure it to a certain amount. This is also a great placeholder for money. What I'm trying to do is open up your minds just to think bigger than what you've been taught in school, what you've been taught by your friends and family. These are concepts I've learned over 20 years, right? And I'm just trying to share them to you just to get your motors rolling and get you thinking. Miller, is there anything else from a viewer standpoint on this topic that you think that they would want to ask or know?
Everything you've told me is kind of collected and summed up in this video too, so.
Cool. So, moral of the story, we love cars. We're passionate about cars, but we can also use cars for such a bigger purpose in our lives, right? And if you take that approach and that mindset, there's so much you can do in your life that will completely change your life. And I'll say one more thing before I go. Marriage is hard, right? In marriage, it was funny. My business partner told me a long time ago, my married 5 times over the years business, right? He said, it's a lot cheaper to go to couples counseling than it is to get divorced, right? So we spent some time in couples counseling and it went phenomenal. This was years ago, everything's going great. But one of the things I had brought up in there, because one of the sticking points in our relationships was cars. Why cars? And she was so upset about cars. And I get it, I understand it. And one of the things we were finally able to get out of that and explain was what I've just said in this entire video, right? And it's not, there's nothing bad, there's no bad feelings about it, but you can understand how some people just don't know or aren't able to look at the bigger picture. Because really, these cars have been the entry into the life that we live now. All the nonprofit that we have with all the animals we've rescued, the farmland, the buildings we've built, right? Like this car, for example, I'm going on a rant again. This car, for example, is a tribute car to our last large development, Mill 1, right? And that has started to change an entire town. It started to change downtown. This love for cars, there's a magazine article over here where they put in the spread and they talked about this. This car is changing Mooresville, right? That's kind of the concept behind it. So anyway, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have, I feel very fortunate and blessed to have what I have. And I've also worked hard to build it. And now hopefully you can take some inspiration and motivation in your life to apply some of these principles and one up yourself. I think that's all I got.
That's all you got? Sweet.
All right. Perfect. Stay tuned for the next video. We are actually going to review each one of these cars, and then we're going to do a Q&A. And we've got a lot of cool questions that came from you guys. So stay tuned. Love having you guys. Appreciate it. And Miller, thank you so much. And see you next time.